Hey everybody. Now we have more than 10 subscribers. That's wonderful. Um, but this is more for us, more for Rita and I.
Mhm.
Um, this is our cosmic dialogue, and today's my birthday. Thank you. Whatever. Um, and we wanted to talk about the silence that we've noticed. Um, and maybe we can go into the future a certain time and sort of talk about when we remembered that day of the silence. So, do you want me to start or you to start, Rita?
You go ahead.
Okay. So I'll say it's been maybe, um, am I on? Do you see me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. For some reason, it's not switching.
Oh, oh,
So
yeah.
there we
Hi.
go.
Love it.
There we go. That's an encouragement. Okay. So I'll say just a year ago. A year ago, um, on my birthday, I had this real sense of quiet that came through, and Rita and I almost did not meet because I was really just sitting in this quiet as if like there was like a real reason or magnetism or some sort of force that was like making us feel quiet. And it was kind of like just sort of something that she felt too, something that Rita felt too. And we wanted to just come through and just discover what was happening a year ago rather than just letting it sit and escape into meditation or quiet or whatever. So what did we find? Um, that I kind of found that there was like there were some threads of this new kind of quiet that kept continuing. And it was really profound because throughout summer, you know, while everything was in bloom and while nature was blooming and budding, there was still this hush about the earth. And I'm an intuitive person, and so I kind of I always sense and feel messages and things that come to me, like through walks in nature, through whatever. But everything that kind of came to me through this time, like as this whole earth change season was supposed to be happening, and it was just this profound silence. And it's still a mystery to me, but that profound silence was just there throughout the summer and throughout fall, through this season. And it was almost as if, to me anyway, it was almost as if nature was kind of calling out, saying, now you're on your own. And it's a beautiful gift. Grieving that.
What was the last thing you said? You paused for a second.
But I was also grieving a little bit
Hmm.
through this letting go. Like it was almost as if this is what I was assuming. It was almost as if like the natural world was now ceasing communication, and it was for our good.
Oh, interesting.
But there was a little bit of grief that I felt. A lot of people didn't necessarily feel this. Communicating with the natural world wasn't something they did, so they went about their business. But those of us who did, kind of on a regular basis, convene with nature, go about the natural world, we did feel, even in interactions with animals and wildlife, that it was different. It was new. It was a new kind of silence, and it did leave us kind of grief stricken. So
Yeah.
that was my experience at first. Did you notice anything else?
Yes, and how curious that we had the same experience but kind of different before we talked. I felt that too, um, that the communication with nature and all the laws of the universe that we were, that it was changing. And I was feeling impatient for it to just be active and to, I actually felt that like a new universal, a set of universal laws were taking shape, and the communication was becoming stronger between at least me and nature. And before the call, I had gone outside barefoot and almost soaked it up. Felt from the trees in my yard and the grass and the ground and the dandelions and the sky and the sun, and just soaked it up without trying to create a mental message about it, and just allowed it to be. So it was very quiet in doing that because there weren't all these verbal, cerebral, and analytical words attaching to it. It just was.
Interesting. That was, I think I kind of came to that late, just through my own, you know, I guess I'll say that I had to go through the grief that you probably didn't have to go through. So,
Mine was just grumpiness, yes.
yeah. And so it's, and plus, you know, I really did realize that like a lot of people probably did just sort of like, they had to go through different emotions. Mine was grief, yours was grumpiness. There was some anger though, like I didn't see a lot of anger expressed in people. I mean, of course, like power structures and things like that, there's always anger, manipulation, coercion, those things still happen, but not a lot of anger towards wildlife or nature or towards the natural world was happening. People did sort of like, I did notice some folks really starting to take care of things around them in the natural world more, even though you kind of felt like when you saw this and witnessed this, that it was almost like it was a too late, done deal, too late. And people felt that. They're like, well, now it's time for us to really take care and love the planet and love nature. But everyone had this, I could sense from other people that they had this now feeling that, oh yeah, we can kind of tell that things have changed and we kind of know that something's up. So we're going to start loving the earth. We're going to start loving the planet. We're going to start loving nature, and we're going to start doing these little things and that we haven't done before. And I just noticed that happening today. You know, photos of nature, or more folks trying to feed squirrels and things like that. But then like when they left after that, it wasn't like this giddy feeling. It was this feeling of, oh, well, I know the squirrels are going to come up to me and eat, but yeah, there was like this real interesting pause that people had today on a walk that I had, where they kind of, it was this unspoken kind of, you know, silence that they didn't know how to reconcile. And I'm still dealing with it. So it's that quiet time where you see that, yeah, the world is now changed and is past something.
Yeah, and it became really easy to recognize who was not on board with the change. It's like the quiet generated this manic agitation to try to drag the rest of us into the noise that we had become so used to. And yeah, and I think probably, as you said, the grief that you had to feel as an avoidance of feeling the grief, both of having been trapped in that noise and because the noise was all we knew. And so it was a loss of the noise. And while some of us could feel really finally at ease to be free in the quiet, for others it felt like the quiet felt like their cage. And so it became easy to notice who was who in that transition time.
Oh, most definitely. I think that like it was very hard to like put up any sort of mask about what you were feeling and how you were expressing that. Um, it was almost as if, yeah, for many, and my agitation was through grief, and you could see that some folks were agitated to the point where it was like they couldn't hold their facades, they couldn't hold their masks, they you know, little mini crises, I guess, where they wanted to like really reconnect and it was like having a last supper or going through their lists of all the things they wanted to do. Um, and I first started doing that and I was like, oh my gosh, Scott, get through that, um, don't do that. So that was, so it was easy for me to like almost like step into that, abyss of, what do I want to do now that if I think things are terminal? And that was what I was feeling at first. What do I want to do now that if I think things are terminal? And that we've now hit this point where there's a no return to what it was before. But also I think that like this silent period is also like a really good thing because it gives us the opportunity to like reflect so that we don't go back to what before. Something new is happening and something new is changing. We have no idea, and some of us are still grasping back to those old paradigms and coping mechanisms. And nobody's immune. I mean, I have grief, because there were like ways that I walked in the world that were just the way I walked in the world. Some people, you've always been kind of far ahead of the curve. It's like, yay, it's quiet and things have changed.
It's funny because when you said things are terminal, I just felt that, yay. It sounds so ominous, terminal. But I was like, oh, finally. And I remember thinking back when you said that early on, that helped me recognize my impatience. Like, okay, let's just get this over and move into the new thing, even if we don't know what it is exactly.
Yeah, and it's just there's a very there's a part of me that is coming through that is a little more anticipatory and seeing what this is all about. And yeah, we're getting through it. And so I want more of that to grow. Now that I've seen this throughout the last year, and even my doggie's seen this last year, she's unaffected. She walks around but she looks at me differently. She looks at me differently and just sort of like takes her time. And so she feels something. But it's throughout this past year, I've had to learn to kind of just accept and really let go. I mean, really, really feel like what that means. I mean, I've been letting go of and shedding things for a lifetime, it seems like, but now, even me, someone like me is like very like, whoa, this is like the real thing of shedding. The real shedding is happening. And yeah, it's very interesting. So it's like that in between time. It's like, we've done these cosmic dialogues way in the future, but we've never really like talked about the moment, the year period of the time where everything got quiet. And everything in the middle where people started. It was like this. Right now, it's like you're in this flat line. That's what it feels like. It's a flat line, and like people are wondering, are we going to the spirit realm and flatlining, or are we going to be revived and start our heartbeat back up again?
Yeah, some people are running around with the paddles, ready to shoot some electricity into something to take us back to the life that we knew.
Yeah, and so you're one of the few folks who's just like, oh, I love this period, like here, this flatline period of like, just, I mean, so I'm really glad and I'm privileged to like be to know you that. So, you know, but many of us don't know what's going to happen, and I'm just watching. So so I'm still struggling with like, what's my role right now? And is my role just to stay quiet? Is my role to stay in this and just be a witness? So it's very interesting. Even after a year, I'm still wondering what my role is. And I think that's probably great for me. So
Well, I
just
think
wonder.
what I've learned in going through this period, and you even said something a year ago about that, that wondering, are we going into the spirit world now? I started wondering if we were experiencing what people do experience when they transition, this kind of confusion, and looks the same, but it's different, and people aren't responding to me in the same way, and the trees look different, and I don't even know how to act here. And I'm wondering if there's a period of confusion until you start to figure out the new rules of this new realm that you're in. And so I started looking at it in that regard, as if I was in a new, like the times that I've traveled to other countries, and just sort of getting my steady, my feeling of balance in the rhythm and the sounds and the food and how things work in a language that I don't understand yet. So I started feeling curiosity about learning what the new culture is in this new realm that we went through without knowing we got on the train.
And I think that's probably what it feels like too. It's like, yeah, we hopped on some train and here we are. How did we get here? And probably I feel really good that I can probably like relate to, I walk in both worlds. I can relate to like some mainstream folks too, what they're feeling, because it's more of like this empathy. And I think I'm also needing to like really shed that whole empathy now. Not horribly, but to realize that maybe I'm soaking up more of other people's feelings than what I should be soaking up. So even as this year's progressed, and I know I've shed all sorts of things, so my next step probably is to realize that I am soaking up the feelings of the world like I always have, in an attempt to cling through it and to use that to understand the world. So if I were to like actually go forward, realize those are not my feelings, and just to like be in this silent stillness that is happening right now, that's something I need to work on now, is to be in the silent stillness and realize that some of those other feelings are probably not mine. Some things that you were actually talking about years ago about really sorting out. These are not my feelings. This is not about me. You would get a rash and know it was not about you. So naturally, you're far ahead.
Well, yeah, it didn't seem like far ahead. It took me forever to figure that out, but eventually I did. But yes, as you were saying that, I was remembering back. Yes, definitely. it felt correct for you to let go of some of the empathy, and it's hard to explain that. It's sort of a paradox. Yes, we want to have empathy and compassion for people, but not absorb what they don't want to absorb, what they don't want to experience within themselves, which they are creating. It's not for us to then do it for them. It's not even for us to understand it.
Yeah, I think that's probably an exercise that much of the world has to learn. It's like it is not up to us to understand and rationalize this. We're not in control. Our time of control is over. So and we have to realize that that's a beautiful thing instead of something to be fearful or grieve about. You have to go through the grief first. So, because animals are going to look at us differently. I mean, everything has changed. It's really interesting. Everything's changed. My dog looks at me differently. She looks at me more deeply. Mm-hmm. People have these experiences with nature now, but they leave feeling like not euphoric, but they leave feeling grief. It's so interesting as an observer. So everyone is going through that. So and in many ways, this is probably we probably are now seeing the beginning of the breakdown for so much of stuff, and this is how it happens. You kind of wake up in a daze and you wonder if you're dreaming or if you're in some alternate reality of where you were. It's kind of the same, but it's not the same, and you're not sure what to do. You're off balance, but you and I have a feeling that this is something natural that's built into all of us because we are part of this earth. We are all part of nature, that there are these other feelings and senses that we have that are awakening this way, but we just don't know how to name them or apply them or deal with them. We're walking again for the first time with this feeling of connectedness to this planet that is probably, and I'll say that is probably in a phase of purging and shedding toxins and disease, and it's now irreversible. Something very natural, something very needed, whether it's our fault or whatever fault. A lot of it's our fault, but at the same time, our earth is going to go on.
Well, what the trees told me a year ago on your birthday, now you're 51, but what they told me a year ago was to notice how they exist for the purpose of giving. And giving is what makes them grow. And the earth does the same. The earth is there to give its resources to the trees. And then the trees give us oxygen. They give shade. They give fuel for warmth and fire. And that's really how all of nature works. Anything that's considered waste in nature is then used by something else. And the trees just kind of communicated to me, what if humans operated in the same way? What if you grounded in the earth to receive energy so that you could give endlessly? It's just an endless source of energy. And you don't have to hoard money. You don't have to take and get. You don't have to use your business to get from other people, because there's this endless source that you can tap into. And your business is about giving. And then people receive what you give, and then also they're tapped into the endless source, and so they're happy to give back. What if that's how our monetary or economic system operated?
And I think also too, it's like people are also feeling like, what the other side of that is that if we're still in these predatory systems where we are easily going to be put into that waste category, we can't live there anymore. So we're going to be in that waste category. And so we have to really examine that and say, well, the earth and this vibration, this new reality is are we going to move in with it, or will we stay in this other state where we just become waste material for the new paradigm? That's probably a harsh realization, but that's what, I mean, really. And I think that's what the grief that people are also feeling in themselves too. It's like, am I now, some people are starting to voice this and some people are not. Am I now a wasteful resource on this planet, or am I giving? Or it's a new time of, and I'm almost certain now that as I speak with it, this next coming year, people are going to have huge life reviews about how they've been either giving or predatory. And I can see this in certain people when they have that grief, when they come in contact with nature. They're right on that precipice of this life review of predation versus giving. And maybe they're masking it with grief. And maybe that overwhelm is just none of my business.
Yeah, I just went totally blank.
Yeah, and it's outside of the realm. So yeah, it's me being me. It's like this past year has been a little bit of me kind of getting into being a compassionate person, a compassionate witness to this, but also realizing that I have to get through. What an interesting cosmic dialogue, really, in the future, knowing that you have to get through shedding your things that are not your own feelings throughout a breakdown that's happening.
Well, what I noticed in this past year is I had to get really okay with watching whatever was happening and not trying to intervene. And I could feel whatever I was feeling about it, but to just let it happen and not attempt to change it in any way other than just stand there and be not in it and allow anyone who wanted to notice me not being in it to get curious and go, why aren't you in this? And either get mad at me for not intervening, and then that's what they have to go through, because I still am not going to intervene, not be pulled in by their anger. And so it became really it was difficult at first to just stay put and be devoted to that learning to remain solid in choosing the new way, even while I saw people kind of self-destructing because they didn't want to choose the new way. It was too scary, or the confusion was just, they couldn't get past the confusion or the grief. or didn't want to feel whatever feelings were coming up because things were changing.
And I think too, me being kind of in touch with sort of other parts and archetypes of me throughout time, and reconnecting with who I was throughout my life journey in other dimensions, timelines. I had to learn something new because I feel like in the past and now, or other alternate timelines that I connect with, and even in my dreams, that I've always been kind of this actor, this action taking person. Even if it was for justice, even if it was for, to protect, or for justice, or to covertly undermine a system, or even overtly undermine a system. So that's also something that has to fall away, even, and it's very difficult. So, but I have to just make a choice, and then it's simple, to like fall away from that and let my new life journey kind of really come into this quiet, and to be in the place where you are. Um, so yeah, that's just a you know a realization of learning throughout my soul's journey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's nothing good or bad. It is a realization of the soul journey that now I have to do something different in my soul's journey that is less active and more meek and more um, passive, receptive, allowing. So, um,
And is it really less active? That's the question. Perhaps it's more active because it, or not because, but it's more active. We just we didn't recognize it back then as to the power of it.
that is, when you bring it up that way, it feels even actually more activated than the previous incarnations of Scott or whatever spirit um, I've been. So, yeah, lots of lessons. Even the soul learns about how we progress right now. So, now I actually, since you say that, I feel a little more activated, even in the quiet. Not activated for a justice seeking purpose, but for a being still and allowing and interesting. Very interesting. But it's beautiful that I can sort of now recognize that this is a new era, even in a soul journey for me and myself. And perhaps that's another key that other people could, if they chose to look at it that way. This is a new time of activating how we're on a journey. We just have to get through the waterfall of emotions when we release the last one.
Yeah, how we're on a journey and whether or not we care if anyone else notices. Um, is it enough for us to just be the witness to our own journey, or do we need everyone else to know?
Hmm, that's a great. Yeah, we don't necessarily need to let everyone else know. They'll know when they know.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we deprive them of knowing when they know that? And so it's, yeah. But at the same time, there is a collective that we are a part of. We're part of the earth. And so this is like a very interesting communal time. So, but yeah, it is. But it's also that message that I get is that it's time for you to be on your own, from nature. I mean, even in their silence, it's time for you to, we're silent in a different way for you so that you can actually be you.
Yeah, it's like they're saying the same thing that I was saying earlier of we are showing you how to simply stand in your devotion to the new way, to the more loving way, to the laws of the universe, the natural way. So you're on your own to choose one way or the other, to choose to emulate what we're showing you or try to continue in your frenzy of staying in control.
And in many ways, I kind of see that as like a very loving, God-like energy
Mm-hmm.
of it is a loving energy to show you that that you are, what are the words I want? It is an unconditional free will that's happening. And they're standing in their truth and just standing upright and just bearing witness to us, our souls. I think we both did this with like soulmate energies before this. We were still present, we were still there, but we were silent, allowing for the reflections of our soulmates and their ability to like get their own quietness, their own reflection, and still for us to just stand in that.
Mm-hmm.
So we were actually modeling that, for those people that we loved. So in many ways, this is
Yeah.
a new step of them loving humanity on the earth.
Mm-hmm. And it can extend to everyone that godlike. Um, I am standing in love, and you're going to go through whatever you're going to go through. You can choose love too.
And if you don't choose love, I'm still standing here,
Mm-hmm.
waiting patiently for you to choose love.
Yes.
And like we said before, you can do this the easy way, or you can make it longer.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still love.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever you come around, we'll be here.
Now or the spirit world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting. Hmm. Anything else?
Hmm. No, I think that's a good one.
Yeah. Good. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you.